divorced, beheaded, survived. And tonight, we are...
Queens, what's going on? Welcome back to the Queendom Podcast. If you haven't been here before, my name is Josh. I am your host, and next to me is Ms. Lucy Aiston from the Bliss 2.0 cast. Hey, Lucy, how you going?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
I am good. I am so excited to be back talking about Six, guys. It has been a hot minute. We had a very extended Christmas break, but we are back. So, Luce, why don't you tell people how you got involved with Six? What was your experience in finding this show and getting involved?
Mine was like a long experience. I actually auditioned for it like 4 times, I think. Basically, this is a funny story. So there's a bar in London called Freedom, which is like where all the like musical theatre people go in Soho. And I sang, there's an event called like Kinky Cabaret, and I sang at this event, and then I got drunk, was dancing on, there's like a pole, dancing around. This guy was dancing with me, and we were singing to Beyonce, and I was like, oh my God, I was like, it's so fun to like meet you. He's like, you too. He was like, are you a performer? And I was like, yeah. I was like, are you? And he's like, oh no, I'm a writer. I was like, oh my God, what have you written? He was like, Six, and it was Toby Marlowe, and I'm on a pole like, what, with Toby Marlowe? And I was like, no way. I was like, that is... the first time I heard the soundtrack, I was in my bedroom and my housemate came in and was like, what's this? And honestly, I swear down, it was Anne Boleyn's song. And I was like, I'm going to play that part one day. I was like, this is like me. And like through that, it was when it was before it was costumed. It just come from the Fringe and was going to the arts. So it was like when it still wasn't choreographed.
Yeah.
And I was originally in for swing, but I'd not had swing experience. And I got a few rounds in and then they said I didn't really have swing experience, which is so fine. And then they got me in again, and it was for the first tour. And I was initially in for Anne Boleyn and Howard. And then I got down for that and then missed out. And then the next time I was in with Courtney Bowman, who obviously got it in the West End. And we were in for Boleyn together. Got all the way down to the end, and then obviously Courtney, who's incredible, got it. And then the last time I was in for Boleyn and Cleves, and I was like, oh, this is a new one. And yeah, and then got it that way. And it's so interesting because like the first few times I was like, oh, why didn't I get it? Like, what did I do wrong? And when you get it, they're like, it's nothing to do with that. It's they're trying to build a cast of six girls.
Yeah.
That like. They were like the very first time was that I'd not been a swing and they didn't really like know what they would. Still wasn't choreographed, and it's so interesting to see the process. Like that time I didn't even dance. I just sang my own song like 3 rounds in, and then did this. Then the next time I sang all first and then dance, and then now it's like you have to do 3 dance rounds, different singing rounds, and you're like the way it's developed is insane. But it's been really fun.
That is so cool. So if you weren't playing Boleyn, who would you want to play?
It always changes, but my consistent one, I love to play Par. Like for a few, I love those trousers. That costume is sick. I love my UFO skirt, but I just think it's so cool. But my favorite part in the whole show is when we do the remix in I Don't Need Your Love, and I just think that whole song. I love Don't Lose Your Head 100%, and like that's Anne Boleyn's my number one, but that would be my second one. I just think she's so. They're also fierce in their own right, but because she survived and because she tries not to play up to this hype, I think she's a little bit different, which I like.
Yeah. How much about the Queens did you know before coming in to this show? Let's go Anne specifically. How much did you know about Anne? It's
not a lot, and it's weird because I actually did history at A level, and I'd studied Tudors, and it's so interesting because when you do it. Obviously, when you see Six, you understand the concept, but you don't really like realize how little you know about women in history, and that it's like, if I teach a lot of like Six dance workshops to kids, and I'll be like, tell me a fact about Henry VIII, and they're like, he's fat or he's ginger, and then you're like, well, tell me what Catherine Howard looks like, and they're like, what? And they didn't even know what she looks like, and I couldn't believe like Anne Boleyn, I knew she obviously had her head chopped off, and I knew that she was accused of being a witch for having 6 fingers, but like they were all negatives. I didn't know that she was clever, I knew she grew up in France, but that she danced in court, that she was musical. And it was like interesting to learn all those things about her. And you think they're all promiscuous, not all of them, but like obviously Howard's painted as promiscuous and Boleyn. And then when you actually look into it, like she's accused of like, is it sleeping with, I can't remember if it's a brother or cousin, and you're like, that's messed up, like that's horrible to say.
There's no proof of it either. It was just an accusation.
Not at all. And like even with the other queens, like Howard was the one that shocked me the most, because obviously when you listen to the song, you think it's cutesy and you're like, cool. But she was 15 when she married Henry, and he was 52, and you're like, what? And then I think that's when you learn stuff, and you're like, all these women like had their own amazing lives, and you only know how they died or survived, like, do you know what I mean, what happened to them in regards to the man, which is so interesting. And when we did it, like when we learned the history in like the first week of rehearsals, you do a lot of like historical context. It's so interesting to go, oh, that's what that means, and that's why like that was said. And we had when we were preparing to go out and rehearse, they sent us like documentaries to watch, and I actually went to Hever Castles like in Kent, so I actually went there, and I was like, this is mad, like how they're perceived as being these promiscuous things, but actually this guy created a religion, chopped their heads off, like all of this to get what he wanted.
Yeah, and like we know that history is told from like the male perspective, but when it comes to this type of stuff, I don't think we realize how male dominated this society was. Like we know it's there, but like the fact that somebody sat on a throne and was like, I want a new religion. Oh, look, this person said this about you. I'm going to chop your head off. Like, it's insane. Like, just to think about that time and how people had to live, and just it's crazy.
Yeah. And it's even being a daughter of a king, like being a woman was seen as like he wanted an heir. So then, and it's so interesting, like obviously this isn't the context of the musical, but like when you learn about Elizabeth that like didn't want a husband, and it's all about like that women are so put down by not having like a male in their life. And this guy who wasn't actually that nice, was a womanizer, like was like gluttonous and like all of that. Like it's so interesting that we in history, and even as a kid, you're taught about this guy that's had all this like money, and you don't realize that you're actually not learning that about these women that were incredible, and ultimately like some of them like made him, and you kind of, when you look at it, you're like, oh, that is really sad and really bad that you don't know. And when I teach kids now, obviously I can't give them like a history lesson, but I'm like, I want you to learn about them. Like I want you to know how cool they all were, and like how like Aragon had been married to him for so long and was like, I'm not letting you send me to a nunnery. Like that's strong. And like imagine like you've been married and had a kid, but you're gonna go and be a nun. Like what? It makes no sense.
So how much research like did you put into the other characters around Boleyn as well? Like
yeah, we did quite a lot. We had to do so interesting the first week, like pushed out of your comfort zone. You had to do like a presentation of your queen, but they also did it where they hot seated you. So our director, you had to be Anne Boleyn, and they asked you questions. So then all the other queens like found that out, and it was interesting. And it's so key to the musical to learn about their relationships with them, like that. Me and the reason like a lot of Boleyn's lines are cut in with Seymour, like when my favorite line, I know it's mine, but in the whole show, is when Seymour says, what hurts more than a broken heart? And Boleyn's like, a severed head. Like I literally got my head I said, that is genius. Like but she's cold towards Seymour, and like when she takes the mick out of her dancing, because ultimately he killed Boleyn to be with Seymour, and like trying to have
Seymour also like a part of her court.
Yeah. And
so,
she
like,
was
like
one of her
Seymour at one point as well. So
yeah, she's like her lady in waiting. But Aragon, one of her ladies in waiting was Anne Boleyn, so it's like a pattern. And it was interesting to learn that, because obviously in Don't Lose Your Head, when she's like, don't be bitter because I'm fitter, she's basically saying, hey, he's getting rid of you for me. So having that banter, and then it was obviously in life, like Berlin wouldn't have known Howard and Parr, but like having that we both got beheaded unity, and then that unity against Cleves that actually, yeah, she was called ugly, but got a pretty sweet deal of getting a castle, getting everything she wanted, and then Parr surviving. So it's interesting, and having the bitterness that you see throughout it that you think is the rivalry, but then actually at the end realizing that you all share the common denominator that is this guy that's an idiot. Like, and this is so like deep, but like even in today's society, especially like in our industry, you have girls that date the same guy, and you're the girl that dated that guy, and you're like, no, that he dated us, like we're the sick ones. Like, and you have to see it that way, that even now still women can be based around a guy. Like, it's never in like the media, like Brad Pitt dated Jennifer Aniston and Angelina Jolie, not Jennifer Aniston dated all of these. It's always like the male is like the pinnacle. It's still a bit like that today.
But I think that's what makes this musical so, one, relevant, but two, cool, is that Lucy and Toby like sat down and were like, cool, let's have a look at this, but how do we make it as modern and relatable as possible that people understand what's actually going on, so we can tell a full history lesson in 90 minutes from different perspectives and everybody understands what's going on.
Yeah.
Just the mechanics behind this musical are just absolutely incredible. Jumping into rehearsals, it's been like over a year since you started rehearsals. So the fact that we're pulling this off the top of our heads, guys, is
I know.
insane.
Yeah, we flew out on the 16th of February, so literally like last week. That's mad.
It's been a hot minute since Luce has been around this show as well. So jumping into rehearsals, you get through that kind of history lesson, then getting to kind of start putting this show together, working with Franny and the team. What was that like, kind of seeing bits and pieces come together and discovering Anne on stage?
So we actually had a bit of a weird deal. So normally in like the West End tour, Australia get 4 weeks to learn the show. We got 3. So they decided, of course we did, because then obviously why not? They decided they wanted to see if they could do it in 3 weeks, not 6. It was like the NCL side wanted to see if they could do it in 3 weeks, and we did, but by the skin of our teeth. And they've now, obviously with coronavirus, but the next cast that was going in was going to get 4 weeks again, because we were doing like 8 a.m. till 8 p.m. days, but then we were going back, and we had lived like on the complex, and we were all going to the gym and like going over stuff. And if we'd not done that, there would have been no way that it would have stayed in our head. And we'd go in the morning. We did the show in chronological order. So we started with ex-wives, you'd learn the vocals, and you put it on its feet. And we always did like exercises with them. So especially with like the solos, we did like kind of improv exercises to work out what the relationships were in the song. And then we'd learn the choreo and then put it all together by the end of the day. And then the next day you'd start with like No Way and what we'd learn, and then learn Don't Lose Your Head. And then the next day you'd go over everything you'd done and then add the next bit on. So it was quite hot. Like, I remember I loved it. Like, I loved the process. We had such fun. But we got to the day of Get Down, and Freya, who is our choreographer, looked at me, and I literally was just like this. And it was the easiest move. And it was like a little hand move, and I couldn't get it. And Freya was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "I'm so tired. I don't know what it is." And we got to, and everyone was like, "Remember the Get Down day?" And all of us were the same. Like, it was an easy click, and someone would be on the wrong beat, and we'd be like, going on. But because we'd learnt so much in a short space of time, we got to Get Down and everyone was like, what? Brains like mush.
Insane. So what was your kind of light bulb moment? I feel like everybody has them when they're in a show, of when you were like, okay, this is happening now, we're ready, we're good to go.
I feel I never felt like really real because it was such a short run and like a rehearsal process, and as we were leaving to go to Florida, to go to the ship, it was when coronavirus it was starting to be like, we didn't really know what it was, and we didn't do our office run, so we didn't show anyone else it. And it was weird because my best friend from like Newcastle home was doing Priscilla.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh my God, like I wanted like to watch and it was going to be amazing. And then he never like got to see it. And it kind of wasn't real then. And then when we did our first dress run and had the costume on, I remember being like, oh my God, this is mental. And it honestly was a dream show for me. And I was like, I can't believe I actually like got here, especially all the times that I'd auditioned and like not got it or things like that. And I actually knew Jade, who played our Arrogant. Me and Jade worked front of house together and we've known each other for years. And we kind of are like, as if we've come from like that place of being together. Through that, we did all the audition process together, obviously, and then getting it. And then I remember, hilarious because we did like 2 shows, but I remember our first show, I cried afterwards, but like it wasn't like sad. I was like, I can't believe I've actually got to do like my dream show. And I remember texting Franny and Freya just being like, thank you so much. And my dream role, like for actually being able to like finally get it. So I think that was kind of when I was like, oh my God, this is actually like real. Then COVID happened, so we didn't even do it. But up to that point, I was like, this is insane.
Yeah. We'll swing back to COVID in a second. Getting in the green and seeing that come together. Talk me through that roller coaster.
Well, hilarious because I remember. So I know Courtney, who plays Evelyn in town, really well, and she sent me a video when I got the job, being like, "Oh my God, you look like a toad, but you're gonna love it because like obviously the green." And I was like, "Oh my God!" And we got there, and it was like our second week, and we had like makeup like tutorials and hair tutorials, and they put my space buns in. I was like, ah! Like they're finally like there on my head, like. But it was so funny because they initially. My hair was shorter and they initially tried to do it with extensions, but when I danced, they like moved on my head. So you're like, no, we look like Leia by the end of the show. So it was so amazing to be like in the green and stuff. But I remember it was my very first, I was so lucky, my costume fit in. I was one of the only people that didn't need adjustments or anything. And I put my costume on. It was weird. I put my costume on and I was like, I love it. And like was obviously obsessed, but the next fit-in I had my B attached. The first fit-in I didn't have my B attached, and it was when I got the B and like the collar, I was like, yeah, I look cool. Like this is it. But it's so hard, like Berlin, you can never sit down fully because the skirt will push up, and then obviously you've got the top bit, so the top bit will push up. So whenever I sit, I'm actually on my like quads, like pulling up and like trying not to like squash my whole costume up. But yeah, that first time I loved the costume. We call it the UFO because it like moves.
Yeah.
But I think seeing it, and my costume's a little bit. Basically, they had the West End designs, and then they had the Broadway designs, like updated versions. Yeah. And they'd updated the Berlin's one, but then they changed it again. But for the Bliss cast, they hadn't changed it back. So mine's a little bit different. It has like a little cross pattern on it that other Berlins don't have, so it's a bit unique.
Jumps to Instagram to have a look at this. What the hell?
Yeah, it's new. Everyone's like, I love the new update. I'm like, no, it's not. It's just mine. And it's not that they didn't like it, but they went a different way with the actual new costume. Yeah. So then mine's this little different Bobo. But then, like I said, COVID, so the costume cursed it.
Man, I forget how like awesome these costumes are. If you guys are watching or listening to this and you haven't actually seen costumes before, please jump to Instagram because
they're so like, honestly, like when that's why I'm upset. The par one is like my favorite thing ever. Like the trousers, I'm just like they're just so cool.
But not even like the trousers, just like the attachment up the side of the leg, like how it's not like a full seam. It's like Gabby Slade, you were a freaking genius.
The new.
Like I've said that a million times in season 1, but guys, we're starting in season 2. Don't you worry.
It's like the new I think they did it in the one that went to the Lyric that obviously the West End opened and then shut again. But they had the new Cleves reveal, which is the new like BAM like I remember we had in rehearsals, my goodness, because they're like plastic and you pull, like, they don't move. It's not like a normal top.
Yeah.
And Scarlett had her like IEMs in. Thank goodness it was like the dress run. And she went, as she takes my phone, I mean, Gabby grabbed it, but pulled her IEMs out so she couldn't hear the music. And we were like, so her jacket was just on the floor with her headphones on the floor. And we were like, we're so sorry. Like, we just yanked it because it wouldn't come off. And we were like, ugh. And Scott was like, I now can't hear the music.
Live performance, folks. Live performance. That's so good. All right, now let's talk about some heartbreak.
Okay.
We're gonna get deep and sad now. Sorry, guys. Go off the high of opening on the ship, and then COVID happens. Talk me through your process, because you guys were out at sea when it happened, weren't you? Like,
Yeah.
So, what was the experience like from your perspective?
It's so weird. I mean, I literally was just before I came on here, was on the FaceTime to Becca, our Howards. Like, we're really close, and we were like, I can't believe like it's been a year, and it was so weird because it's not like you're in the West End and you know what's going on, because you're at sea, and also we were in America, so American news is very different. And obviously Trump was in power. Trump was like saying it wasn't this big deal, like obviously, like, and we didn't really know what was going on. And we got called into a meeting. Obviously, we'd literally opened the night before, and we got called into a meeting, and we just thought it was that. And we'd only just, so Jersey Boys is on with us, and we just met them, and they were like, congratulations and all of this. And we sat there, and they were like, basically, that's the last show, and like tomorrow when we dock in New York, everyone's going to be getting off except you guys. And we were like, okay. And at first, we literally thought it was going to be like 2-3 weeks. We didn't know, because we weren't in England, we didn't know the severity of what was going on. And we actually thought, because we stayed on the boat for a week, we were on there for 2 weeks extra. We were there for a week, and we were like, oh, we're just going to stay on here till it's done. Like, we genuinely thought we would stay on there, and then when they had passengers come back on, then we would be there. And it kind of got to a point where I initially think none of us processed it, because we didn't mourn it, because we thought we were coming, like, we'd be back. And then when we got our flights and stuff, I remember saying bye to, like, because a lot of the Jersey Boys are American and Australian.
Yeah.
They were like, see you in like a month. And we were like, yeah, we'll see you like in a month. And like didn't have a clue. And we got back off, and it's so bad, like looking back, we got back off in the UK, didn't have masks, didn't quarantine, like we didn't know what that was, like we weren't told anything. And obviously then it happened, and I was like, and then each NCL would be like, yeah, we postponed it till like May. And we were like, oh, we'll be going back in 2 months. And I think it got to like August, June, like last year, and I was like, oh my God, like this isn't finishing, like this is not. But obviously because we came out of lockdown, we were like, oh, there's hope. Like in the UK, we obviously came out of lockdown, and then we went back into a tier system. Then we went into a lockdown, and we were like, what is going on? And I genuinely think until about Christmas time, none of us had like fully processed it. And then it became like a reality of, are we going back? That then became the sadness, because I think we always thought, well, we're going back, but now we don't know what travel's going to be like. We don't know if they'll hire Americans to do it. We don't know, like, because obviously travel bans are in place, and obviously it's Biden now, but Trump had stopped people coming in the borders, and we were like, it's just, that's the sad thing. And the weirdest thing is, I've always been in casts of like boys and girls, and I was like nervous, not in a bad way, but that obviously to be in a group of girls, just a full cast of like, well, there was 10 with rehearsal swings, but like 8 girls. And honestly, I've never gotten along with people so, like, we were like the best mates. We, on Christmas Day, we all FaceTimed each other. On New Year's, we all FaceTimed each other. And it's like, that's the sadness that we never got to see how like that would develop fully, like on stage, if that makes sense.
You've got this connection now after rehearsals in one show, like, imagine it was the full contract. Yeah, I get you. It's insane, guys. Like, at the start of COVID, I was a travel agent. For those that don't know my background, so I was working in travel. So I was watching it started in China, and then all of a sudden I'm trying to get people home from Italy and America, and I lost my job due to COVID, and that's where this started. But like seeing cruises stop and then all of that type of thing, we honestly thought, oh yeah, cool, a couple of months, it'll be good. And then Broadway shut, and I was like, I remember the initial vibe when Broadway shut. It was like, yeah, cool, it'll be a couple of months and we'll be back. And here we are a year later. Like it's insane how underestimated this was.
Yeah. And it's weird how, because we had a stopover in New York before we went to the ship, and we saw Moulin Rouge literally 2 days before it then closed.
Can we talk about Moulin Rouge? Oh my
god. Phenomenal. It's gone out again. I was in for it. So we had lockdown, then we came out of lockdown, and then we had a little lockdown, and then in December it opened up again. And I got an audition for Moulin Rouge. I was in the room learning the Broadway choreography, and I was like, this is the best thing in the world, like incredible. We learnt the like bad romance section, and oh my god, it's the hardest thing ever, like legs, but like commercial, like vibes. Okay. But honestly, when I watched it, I was like, this is I'm going to be really controversial. I don't like the film. I'm not a massive fan of Nicole Kidman in the film.
I agree. The musical.
And yeah. Oh. And the music, like shut up and no, actually the elephant medley, phenomenal. And when we saw it, we were like, this is insane. And then 2 days later it shut, and we were like, what? Like, what is going on?
I was in New York in like January, so I saw it and I was like, oh my god. And I saw it another 2 times there. So I saw it 3 times in one trip, and I was like, I just couldn't, like, but not even that, like the way they did the theater up, like
stunning.
Oh.
And I love the guy that played Toulouse. Here's a fun fact as well. When I went to drama school, Aaron Tveit was in England doing Assassins, and he did a workshop with us at college, and he sat here and I sat here, and I was like this the whole time, just staring at him talking. He was like teaching everyone, and I wasn't watching people singing, I was just watching him, like sat next to him. Like, he was incredible. Like, I thought everyone, like the dancers in it, I was like, this is top show. Yeah. I've seen a lot of Broadway shows, and I've loved some, but that was just incredible.
It just blew me away. Just like the updates to the show for you guys that love the movie. Like, imagine the movie but modern songs. Like, I love Chandelier, the green fairy. That was like, because that was my most hated scene in the movie, was the green fairy scene. It got and then they started. I was like, oh, guys, this is now the Moulin Rouge podcast. Welcome.
Just the fan club.
But yeah, I am like, it's about to open here in Australia, and it's gonna be so much fun.
Oh my god, amazing! But it's so weird, like even how because my friend Alex, who did Jersey Boys, when we were out there, like obviously you're not fully back to normal, but obviously Australia, he was like, yeah, like Frozen's open, and you're like, it's so weird how in different places we are, obviously because of how our government handled it, but like things like that it's madness that a year on, like Broadway's not back yet, but like then Australia, like different places are. It's so bizarre.
And like I've got my other podcast for those of you that are listening and have been long-time listeners to the Queendom Podcast. I've got my other podcast, We Are Theatre, and that's covering kind of like the return of theatre. So I've been chatting to the guys from Come From Away who are in Melbourne, and I went down to Melbourne. But I also got a shock because when I came back, I had to quarantine because there was an outbreak down there. So like it was like,
oh my god,
kind of reality hit. Like, oh my god, this is like still a thing. Yeah, cool. I can travel to all these theaters, but like, crap.
Yeah, yeah.
It's insane. What other shows did you see? Let's just have a travel chat now.
Oh my god, I've seen so many. Like I've been to Broadway a few times, but I went. 3 years ago now, by myself. My friend lives in Brooklyn, and I went to train at Broadway Dance Centre in Ely for a bit, and I saw Come From Away when it first came out, Waitress with Jason Mraz, interesting, Hamilton, and what else did I see? Anastasia. So the last like 4 Broadway shows.
A lot of people haven't seen Anastasia. What was your thought of Anastasia? It was
when they danced on the walls, I was like,
yeah.
But I've seen Hamilton in the UK as well, but I said to myself, I was like, there's one show that I'll pay like money for, like, and Dear Evan Hansen was on, and it was Ben Platt's last week, or Hamilton, and Hamilton's my favorite musical.
Yeah.
And I was like, I was like, I'm not, the queue for Hanson was so long, and like Hamilton was only like 3 people, and I was like, I'm got more of a chance. And I made friends in the queue. They were so cute. And then I love it, like I love it. They were pilots, like, that had like a layover, and they were like, oh, we don't know anything about the show. And obviously I was like, well, I told them. And I got tickets, and so I was like on the front row, and then at the interval I heard Lucy, and I turned around and it was them, and they were like, we got tickets too. And I was like it was because it was sold out for so long.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's the Hamilton on Broadway is the best thing I've ever seen. Yeah, I think I'd go and say that.
It'd go close. I definitely think Moulin Rouge for me takes the cake. I'm just kind of looking at my wall because these are all the shows that I've seen, for anyone that's wondering.
Oh my god, that's amazing.
And this is.
I saw Kinky Boots on Broadway. What else did I see? I saw Newsies.
So when I was in New York, sorry to cut you off there.
No. I love it.
The Australian production had just closed, and one of the Aussie guys had come back to Broadway, and he was the understudy for Lola on Broadway. And my mum and I were there, and we knew him. And I was like, hey, gonna be there. And he got us backstage, so I got to stand on like my first Broadway stage after.
Oh my god!
So freaking cool.
That's amazing.
Just absolutely wonderful. Yeah, like I'm not so. Frozen is great just for the costume change, like just for the let it go. Ooh.
I'm excited, yeah, because obviously it was meant to open here, but yeah, so it should be at some point. It's weird. I saw when I came the first time to Broadway, I saw Newsies, which was incredible. I was front row. Oh, that was incredible. Seize the day on the paper, like getting paper thrown in my face. I was like,
show, and I haven't seen it. That is.
And we saw, it was meant to be Jeremy Jordan, and we saw the understudy Andy Kaplan. I think that was his name. Incredible, like he was phenomenal. And then we saw that Wicked, which I do love, but I've seen like so many times. Oh my goodness, we saw Bridges of Madison County, and it was with Kelly O'Hara and Stephen Pascal. I didn't know anything about that. My friend Michael was like, I want to go see it, and I was like, oh, okay, like fine. I meant to see it, and it was, honestly, I cried so much. I was like, this is like masterclass of like acting in a musical. And then obviously Derek Klenner was in that, and then he was in Anastasia when I saw him, and I was like, I mean, he's just unreal. Like, I'm so stagey. I'm like all these things.
Like my like kind of idol. Like if when I was performing, like he was my like just. And by the time I got to Anastasia, I had Cody Simpson in for
right, okay,
which was really cool. Like he blew me away. Like I wasn't a big fan of him as a pop star, but as a theater actor, he's got some chops. And I was like, yes, okay, I can see this. But yeah, like, guys, theater is just
because he's in Jagged Little Pill, isn't he, Derek Klenner? Well, was in Jagged Little Pill. Yeah. He's the brother. But it's weird when you say about pop stars. I saw, when I was little, I loved Jason Mraz, and I saw him in a Waitress. He didn't have a clue what was going on. Like, I was literally like, he was making up stuff, he dropped stuff all the time. It was so funny, but I was like, you ain't got a clue what's happening.
That was me watching Mean Girls. So when I saw Mean Girls, I had that YouTube guy that was in, I can't remember his name, but like I felt bad for the girl that was playing Katie, because like he couldn't hold a heart. She was doing a fantastic job. And like I barely knew the show, and I could hold the harmony better than what he
did. Yeah.
It was a duet. There was no one else on stage, and it was just painful to watch. And I was like,
oh no,
this is Broadway, guys. Come on. Like, go. Musical theater, guys. Live performance. We love it. I just love talking about theatre. It's been a hot time since I've just been able to...
Anyway, it's been so long since I watched... I luckily got to see one of my other favorite musicals, and this is weird because it's only new that became like one of my favorites, was Jesus Christ Superstar. And I didn't like the soundtrack. I'm like, oh, okay. And basically a choreographer and director, Drew McConey, who did King Kong and Broadway, he's like my idol. Like he did On the Town here, he did In the Heights, and he revamped Jesus Christ Superstar. And it's kind of similar to the John Legend version where it's like really cool and like hip hoppy, but like over here it's just like next level. It's one of the best shows visually I've seen, and we were lucky because when lockdown ended, they had like a season in the summer because they could do it outdoors, and I think that was the last show that I saw. But other than that, I've not seen a show since Moulin Rouge. Like that's mad.
It's insane. Hey, like
I used to watch like 10 a week.
yeah, that was like when Six was on, I was like in Sydney every weekend, like, and it's a 2-hour trip for me down. But like, it went for a year, and I remember walking back into the theater and being like, nah, this isn't real. And then I sat down in my seat and I like saw the stage and I heard like the ambient music and I was like, okay, all right,
Yeah.
I'm doing this. And I just remember hearing the overture and it was Frozen. So all I hear is na, 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 hey, ya, na. And I just start sobbing.
Oh my God, that will be me. I'll be gone.
Just insane. And I'm like crying thinking about it. You guys are
It's
actually
like
able to see me crying. I'm not actually crapping on.
it's like I literally, because when it came, obviously the lyric opened and it was here, and I was like, oh my God, like I want to go see it. Like obviously I'm saying that Hamilton is like my favorite music, but Six is definitely like like they're both up there. Like I not even because I'm in it, I loved it before, and I was gonna go and see it, and I do like kickboxing in my spare time, and Colette, who is the alternate in town, was there, and I was like, oh, I'm Luce, and we were like chatting, and she was just like, I don't know how long it's gonna last, because also next, like 2 doors down from Six is Jamie, and that was opening up, and then 3 doors down was Les Mis, so that the whole street was the only theatre, so it was just packed, and obviously like COVID over here, like that wasn't allowed, and I literally saw her on the Tuesday, and she's like, I don't even know how long it's gonna last, so I was like, oh, I'm gonna get a ticket, and she was on for Seymour, and then literally the next day she was like, I knew it, and they were like, it's closing, and you're like, you can't just get like, obviously with our state over here, they're just like up and down, and it was so sad because everyone was like, no, we want to go watch it, like we want that, like to see it, and hopefully they've said for us in potentially May time here now, so we're like, come on.
Yeah. Fingers crossed. Like just having conversations around the theaters here, just like having the arts back as a option for people to consume is just such a big relief. And there's so many like first time theater goers. Like when I was in Melbourne, I saw Come From Away 3 times, and I was just like chatting to everybody, and they're like, yeah, we haven't seen it before, this is our first show like that we've seen. And I'm like, oh,
get ready
to the party. But like, it's just cool to think that everybody's found a way to consume or find theater during last year. Like there's going to be a lot of not only like new patrons in the theater, but also new talent coming across that haven't thought of theater as a viable like performance outlet or something like that before. It's going to be very interesting to see how the industry kind of bounces back after this, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be interesting. Like, I feel like there'll be like new works and like different like, and as well, like writers have had like a lot of time to like write and come up with ideas in this time. So it's going to be exciting, and people there's obviously always passion in the industry, but like people just like want it even more now, and it's more of that like drive that performers have and stage hands and like creatives have, that now it's going to be there and creating like fresh and new things.
Yeah, and like you just think of everything that got like the amount of times that Six tried to come back in the last year. Like shout out to the producers, like you guys tried to make everything happen. But you had like squad goals going on for a little bit there as well. And what was it? Let's go into there.
What should we get told off here? Squad goals. Oh my God. So obviously Jade is in it as well, who is my arrogant. It's just a lot, isn't it? So it was at a football stadium, and I initially was swing. So I went, the whole show was like funded, and it was Essex girls. And obviously I'm from Newcastle, and it had two northern, like Leeds, Bradford girls. One was Jade. And I mean, Jade's from everywhere. Jade is literally from like, she's from Wales, but then she lived in Manchester, and like, she's got every accent under the sun. So, and then the other girl was from Bradford. So I started a swing, and it, I ended up being the lead girl, and they just, something happened with the other lead girl, and it ended up not working out, and they got me in, but like I had a week till the show, and I hadn't learned that track, and I was like, what? And the whole first half was like a play about women's football, and like how it's still that stereotype that you're either a lesbian, butch, and the were people that were playing the stereotype, but there were people that were girly that wanted to play football, and it was all about like women not getting paid the same as men, and the game not still being the same. Kind of a similar vibe to Six, of being like the women are still under a pay grade of men. And then the second half was a 20-minute commercial dance piece of a football match, which was the most exhausting thing I've ever done. It was incredible, and like all these like insane songs like Boss Bitch, like Bad Man by Missy Elliott, like these cool songs, but oh my god, we'd be like sweating by the end of it. But basically, COVID happened again, and they introduced rules. They introduced rules of six, and it was an immersive piece at the beginning, and we had to get rid of that because we couldn't take people around because we couldn't be next to them, and we weren't wearing masks. And it just got to a point where it also, we were in Essex, so it was, you had to travel to get there, which obviously you then weren't supposed to do, and it just kind of, it was meant to be a 6-week run or 5-week run, and we ended up doing 2. And it just was like, and it was split cast in case one cast got COVID or had to quarantine, they had another cast. So we didn't even do that many shows each, and it was kind of the same thing of Six, of doing this rehearsal process and then not really doing the shows.
Yeah.
So it was such a, it was a similar thing, but I think because of Six, I had a hard skin, and we kind of went in going, this could happen. I think if you go in with that knowledge, that if I was going in going, oh my god, we're going to do this run, but we were like, COVID's happening, we might not even, I remember our company manager being like, we might not even get to press night, and I was like, that's such a weird. And this is another funny story. On press night was the actual day that the rule of 6 came in, and that you couldn't stand up, and that you couldn't play music indoors, and it was our press night. So we're all there in like dresses, and Toby Marlowe and Lucy Moss came. And we're all sat in groups of 6, and me, Lucy Moss, Toby and Jade are just sat there like having a packet of crisps, and like they're having pints of beer, and we're just sat there on this press night like, isn't this the weirdest experience of your life? Like, us just sat here like having press night and not being allowed to be in one big, we weren't even allowed a photo together because we weren't allowed to be in a group.
Yeah.
We were like, this is bizarre.
It's just it's a crazy time, and it's going to be very interesting to see how everything kind of comes out the other side, because it's going to be very interesting. This is insane. Let's jump back to 6, because we've spent like half an hour talking about other stuff.
I know.
Sorry guys that came here for 6. Lucy, she's the queen, so that's all that matters. What's your favorite part of the show?
Oh, I think, yeah, my favorite part is definitely when we do the breakdown of the remix of I Don't Need Your Love. I think because that's the bit when obviously they're like, oh my god, we're treated the same, we've been fighting this whole time. And it's like that empowerment of actually, and like all the old school like funk house moves, like it just for me is that insane like camaraderie like of the show. And like when we come in and sing the end of it, and we're all in that circle together, just like, it's not even choreographed, it's like vibing with each other. I remember the first time we did it, and we were obviously in a circle, and Megan is part in the middle. It was like, it was because we got on so well. It was just like one of the happiest like moments of my life, like that you had that moment on stage. And I do think that was my favorite bit in the whole show.
I love
and I also love Get Down. I love that sassiness of being like, we're that cool that we don't even really need to move. Like, that like choreo of like, we can click and we're cool.
I love it. I'm just like, I've got this picture in my head of like that last section of I Don't Need Your Love after you like do the remix and it's like, and then Pi hits that note. It's just like,
Yeah.
oh, guys, you know, right? And if you've listened to this show long enough, you could probably picture what we're talking about in your head. Cool. Luce, that pretty much brings us to the end, mate.
Oh my God, that's mad.
I don't know if there's anything else we can talk about. If there is, we'll get you back. But to wrap things up, what does this industry, the theatre industry, mean to you? Like,
Oh my
let's
God.
go to put a nail in
This is deep. It's so weird. 'Cause I was literally talking about this yesterday. Like, my friend, this is going to be the weirdest way of putting this, and I'm going to backhand what he actually said. We were talking the other night about like what makes people happy and all of this, and obviously staying happy in this time. And my friend basically, which I disagree with, was that external things can't make you happy. And I do believe, obviously, you have to have happiness within yourself. But I think your friends make you happy in their external and your family. But we were talking about careers, and he was talking as a perspective of like being a lead in your job, or being like having a Netflix role or having followers. And I was like, I don't want it for that. I want it because dancing and singing and acting makes me happy. And that is where my happiness comes from. I don't determine who I am and if I'm happy if I've got a job or not. Like, because there's so many times as actors that we don't have jobs and we're doing that part-time job. But my happiest is when I'm on the stage, and it's not because I'm in work, it's because I'm doing what I love. And I can never tell you another time that I've not known like that I wanted to be an actress. And I always say this when like people ask me. I was about 3 or 4, and my granddad, my mum's dad, showed me a video of like a cartoon called Tom and Jerry, and there is a video of Gene Kelly dancing with like this, obviously it's animated, but this cartoon, and dancing with Jerry. And I was like, I just want to dance. And then obviously my granddad introduced me to Singing in the Rain and things like that. And from then on, like, I remember in my first school assembly, I was like, I'm going to be an actress when I grow up. But I never wanted, I was like, oh, I don't want to do TV or film. Obviously, I would do that in my career. But I wouldn't be like no to a Netflix drama. But what I'm saying is, I just love the idea of being on a stage and the idea of live performance and having that feeling, especially like Six has been my favorite musical today. I've done incredible shows that I've loved, but to date, even though I only did 2 shows, has been my favorite musical to be in, and having that feeling on stage of that happiness. But it's also of making an audience happy, and I've learned that very much in this lockdown time, that theatre is an escapism. And I get angry, and not because I'm like, oh, we're not being supported right now, which we're not, and actors aren't. But it's that thing of, we make in England 6 billion to the income because arts is so needed, and not just theatre, like everything, but it's an escapism from life. And it's shown in people like that have done concerts in lockdown, like how many people buy tickets and how many people watch stuff on their screen because it makes them happy. And it's that feeling of you doing that, especially with Six. I'd done shows, a lot of shows, but never had like a fan base. And when you do it, it's that feeling of that this show makes so many people happy and makes them feel confident and gives them that. And this show is so, in the casting breakdown, it says anyone that who identifies as female. It doesn't say like, oh, you have to be a female to play a queen. Like, this is open for like gay people, trans people, like women empowerment. Like, it appeals to everyone. And I feel like that's what, to me, theatre is that I know now in lockdown, when I feel rubbish, I'll watch Hamilton and I'll feel better. Or I listen to musical theatre. Like, when I see people, I like change my Spotify, like as if, yeah, I'm really cool, and I listen to like Drake, which I do love. But like, it's normally like Les Mis. And I'm like, oh no, I'm listening to cool music because I love musical theatre so much. Because I think it brings that joy. And also, like you were saying with Six, it educates you as well. It's not even just like, I remember watching Hamilton with my parents, and they were like, what is this? And you're like, this is what this means. And like, this is why this is why it's cast the way it's cast, and things like that are like revolutionary. Like when you look at Parade, even Come From Away, like they're all real stories.
I still can't get over that. Like,
But even when I went to watch Come From Away, and I sat next to they were American, obviously they weren't Canadian, but I sat next to an American couple and they didn't know about it. And I was like, that's mad that this story obviously happened here and they didn't even know the story. And I remember crying when I watched it, and I was like, this is real, and it's done in such a way that honors it, is clever, is a beautiful piece. And it's like, you have shows like that which are true and educational, then you have like fun shows like Beetlejuice and like and Mean Girls that are there to just bring pure happiness, and Frozen for like family. So it's just an environment that brings joy, and I think that's why I do it, because it brings me joy when I'm doing it, but I also love the fact that it brings other people joy and gives people confidence to be who they want to be and outlet, like express themselves the way they want to express themselves.
And I think that's external to the stage as well. Like there's obviously that outlet for the performers, but the stories and everything that are told in these shows, it's like listening to your favorite album. Like you're going to pick up stuff out of it and you're going to gain inspiration.
Yeah.
Something out of it. That's what theatre is, definitely to me.
Even like Wicked, like you go and watch it sometimes on the surface and you're like, it's just this amazing musical that is before the Wizard of Oz, or you go and identify as someone that's maybe a bit different but is actually worthy of love and worthy of everything that they deserve. And you don't have to be, especially like for girls, you don't have to be this typical pretty person to fit, to be strong and be, and then but she then finds herself, when she accepts herself as well for being, they both are these women that have empowerment. And you have that in so many other shows, like Les Mis showing you different characters, Kinky Boots, like come on, these guys in drag and being like it's okay, and also showing the development of like Dawn, of like acceptance and things like that. It helps shape like our community, and like who I feel like it's one of the only industries in the world that is accepting of everyone for who they are, what they are, and that's brought by theatre and theatre icons and people in it. And I feel so much so now it's like colorblind and everything, like casting is just like, if you're right for the role and you play the role, then that's what it's going to be. And I think it's exciting in that way.
Yeah. And I think theatre, we're running with this topic because this is just great.
Yeah, go for it.
But like it presents those social issues but enacts immediate change. Like you can watch movies and all that type of thing, but theatre, you're in a room with 1,000 other people consuming the same thing, but you might take something out of it, or it might, because you can see that person physically, you might have an eye contact at one point that just really sinks a point.
Yeah.
That I think it enacts immediate change where film and TV don't. So like it's presenting that. And then like all of those social issues that we're pushing, I think having them on stage is just where it needs to be.
Yeah. And it's even like it challenges, like with things like Hair and Rent and Spring Awakening and Bear, like all those shows challenge the norms and stuff, and have had obviously Hair had controversy and things like that, but it's that thing of it creates conversation, which like obviously Hamilton did, and then the way that he colorblind casted it, and you're like, but this is why, and this is why that was showing that America is built on immigration and built on and reclaiming, like obviously George Washington like had slaves and kind of was working with John Lawrence to abolish slavery, but still wasn't fully there, and is played by a black man to reclaim that power. Like it's so clever, and when it makes you think, you're like, theatre should be evoking change and making statements, but then also, like we're saying, like make people happy and have the outlet of like that joy of like an art, and associating with people on stage, and just feeling like for that hour and a half, 2 hours that you're just like somewhere else, which is like that. And that is genuinely like, I always thought like when I was younger, I was like, is there anything else I'd do? And when you've had like rubbish times when I've been like, I'm never going to work. And you're like, is there anything else I'd do? And I'm like, there is nothing at all that I'd rather do than be on the stage. That's so stagey, but.
But it is what, like, I wanted to perform, and that didn't work out for me, but here I am still in this industry in another facet. Like, those of us that have kind of are dedicated to this art form, we're stuck here. Like, we're not going anywhere.
Yeah, you can try, but you'll come back.
But like, just with the social issues, like the biggest push and the most confronted I've ever felt in a theater is Jagged Little Pill. Like, if you guys can, if it comes back, go see Jagged. It upfront talks about like drug abuse and sexual abuse, like, and it is full on, but it opens your eyes to so much, and it's just crazy.
Yeah.
Guys, that's it. We're gonna try and wrap this up before an hour.
I know, sorry, I'm the worst for talking.
That's all good. We are setting the bar. Season 2 is back, guys. If you haven't already, make sure you're hitting that subscribe button on YouTube. Hit that follow button on if you're listening to the podcast on Spotify, Apple, or wherever else you get it. We will be back weekly with a brand new queen. Guys, we are back, and I am so excited to be back talking about this show. And hopefully we will be here covering it as it returns to the stage. Fingers crossed, May, UK, please. We need 6 back on our stages, guys. So make sure you are following me, Josh on the Air, the Queendom Cast. Follow Luce at Luce Aiston. All the links will be down below. Guys, that is it. And we will see you next week with a brand new episode of the Queendom Podcast. Bye.